Hello everyone! Today I am going to talk about the ESTP personality type. So let's first summarize them in a few words. These people are adventurous. Because they love to collect experiences, they can seem like pretty adventurous people. They love trying new things usually. They're the kind of people who want to kind of experience everything that can be experienced. Of course, they will still also follow their own interests, but compared to the other types, they really are focused on just collecting experiences and analytical. But I actually wrote down analytical action because these are the kind of people who they do love to analyze things, but it kind of has to be something that is really connected to the physical world. They are not going to be really good at analyzing things that cannot actually be applied in the world around them. So it's more of an action oriented analysis whenever they're going to want to analyze things. So yeah, they really care about if things make logical sense. They want to understand how things work. Like, for example, how does a car work? And how can I make it work better? And they are very adaptable. These are the kind of people that are really good at responding to crisis situations, and they don't really like having a plan, at least not, very detailed plans or very long-term plans. So usually they just go into the day and see what life throws at them, and then they actually enjoy responding to it, seeing what works in the moment, and kind of going with whatever happens. So they're really the people who aren't afraid of changing plans. They aren't afraid of the unexpected, and they usually adapt to it pretty easily. This also just makes them very spontaneous. So you went somewhere with them and you kind of had a plan, like, oh, let's go to this restaurant or whatever. But then maybe you run into something way cooler than the thing you planned to go to, and they'll just be like, oh, let's do that, reacting to what's happening in the moment. So, yeah, they're also very realistic and practical. I think they are usually described as the most realistic type, together with the ESFP, because they are so focused on the world around them as it is, and adapting to that as well. So they're usually really practical people. They're the kind of people who will base what they're going to do on their actual experience with things. So in that sense, they are realistic. They're not going to spend their time daydreaming. And this is also why they are very present. They are usually in the moment. Though I have to say, they can also be easily distracted. It's kind of two sides to it, where at the same time, they're really good at being in the moment, because the thing is, they do prefer to be focused on their environment. They're usually quite focused in on something around them. So they might, for a moment, be very focused in on a conversation they have or an activity that they are doing. But they are also kind of easily interested in new things around them. If they're talking to someone, they're completely focused in on the conversation. And then maybe something really interesting happens on the other side of the room. Then they might decide to just go over there, and kind of be like, okay, now I'm just gonna focus on that with my full attention. So it's like they have their full focus, but they'll just switch their focus to different things because they just like exploring a lot of things. I forgot to say, with the practical thing, they're good at working with their hands and knowing how can I use my surroundings, just handling objects. Yeah, they're really good at improvising, just improvising a solution to a problem. As long as the problem is something that's not necessarily very theoretical, but it's something that kind of has to do with the physical world. Find a solution to a problem in the world directly around them. This type is very, action oriented. For example, if there's a fire, then if you think about it, a type that has extroverted thinking might kind of just be like, okay, we're gonna make a plan. You're gonna do this and you're gonna do that, Whereas the ESTP is one of those people who would just like run upstairs and grab a bucket of water and then just start putting out the fire by themselves because they're just kind of like, we're just gonna take action, or grab the fire extinguisher or something. They also really like physical activity in general. They usually like to be moving around, doing things all the time, being active, and yeah, they might be good at like building something, fixing things. And this is also why they like hands-on learning. So they like to be focused on the practical side of things. They usually also don't like to sit still for too long. Yeah, so they really like to have variety in their life as well in general. They're also usually very fun-loving, kind of easygoing. You might also call them, this is also something that you might also call ESFPs, like the life of the party. Someone who's just really able to have fun and just enjoy the moment. Kind of just enjoy the experience and not be thinking about anything else too deeply. You know, not too serious. They feel like life should be lived. I feel like they shouldn't reflect on things, think about things for too long, because they, they're kind of afraid, like, I might miss an experience. If I stop and think about things for too long, think about all the possible experiences I could be missing, right? They are usually pretty accepting of cultural norms and just customs, things that are accepted in their culture because they're so in tune with the world around them. The downside is that they don't necessarily feel comfortable imagining things very different from how they have always seen them, because they're just always present and don't feel the need to necessarily change things, even if maybe people would be better off if things were changed. They will usually not be the ones to come up with the idea of, hey, maybe we should do this differently. They're not really focused on analyzing, should things be this way? They are just focused on working with it. They want to be able to work with it. They don't really want to question it too much. So, but if someone else comes up with an idea and maybe they've seen that it works out, they might go along with it. So yeah, they're usually very accepting of culture. They don't want to question things too much. They just want to be present. They want to be, the life of the party. They want to be able to kind of interact with people and talk about the same things. Theories that aren't directly connected to their life, to the world around them, can be very draining for them. Things like philosophy and theories that don't have a direct practical application. It's like this thing where they can talk about it sometimes, but they don't like to think about that kind of stuff for the entire day. It would just drain them. Maybe very deep psychological stuff can also be difficult for them. They do have a social side, but it's a bit more of a playful side. It's more the thing where they can seem very social, but at the same time, they're still thinkers. So that means that they are not always going to be interested in building social relationships, understanding someone on a very deep level. They're more interested in understanding the logic behind things than understanding people and what they care about. And, of course, like I would say for any type, they're probably still going to have social relationships in their life that are very important to them. But it might kind of be like, well, they like being with friends, but they might be a bit more focused on, hey, let's have this new experience together and let's just do something, rather than maybe talking with each other about, oh, how do we feel about things. But yeah, but they do like to kind of play around with social stuff. They're usually pretty funny. They're the kind of people that, because they like to be social, but they're not always 100% invested in it, they can seem like they don't mind accidentally offending people, because they're usually kind of like, if it's for the sake of a joke, it's fine, or if it's for the sake of the truth, because they care a lot about kind of not denying the truth. They don't like logical inconsistencies. So if someone says something and they feel like this person is wrong, they might be very direct about that. But at the same time, they might really respond to social cues as well. Or at least it might seem like they really try to respond to that, and maybe in their facial expressions too. And they're probably going to be aware of the general vibe, of the room, and they're probably going to try to join that vibe, join in with that vibe as well. Yeah, in terms of like jobs, they could be in sports, or maybe these are the people who are likely to enjoy traveling, so they might want to do something that includes travel, or they might want to be a performer, kind of be on the stage, or they might want to do a certain a job with a more technical side to it. But at least they are going to want to have a bit of variety in their job. They're not likely to be interested in like an office job where they do the same thing every day and they have to sit still for nearly the entire day at their desk. They're probably going to hate that. They want to maybe go outside, or they want to just travel, or they want to at least have a bit of variety. So yeah, these are the people who are likely to have a lot of life experience. If you ask them something like, oh, have you done this before? There's going to be a big chance that they're going to be like, yeah, I have experience with that. They're likely to have a lot of life experience, and they can therefore be good at giving this kind of practical advice about life. When we're going to talk about their weaknesses, they don't really tend to reflect on their experiences. They are just so focused on collecting more and more experiences that they don't really take a lot of time to pause and reflect on what they learned from, say, one experience, and how different experiences connect. Just kind of like the insights that they could gain from these experiences, because they're more afraid that they might be missing something new. They will probably remember them, but they might not think too deeply about them naturally. But at some point, they kind of have to learn to also be more introverted, kind of think about, what do these experiences actually mean to me, and how can I use them to think about, like, what do I want from life? Because one thing is also that they might have difficulty actually settling down, making definitive choices about what they want, and maybe really building something stable for their life, because they are kind of the type of people who like to keep their options open. For them, it's kind of like they see events, but it's a bit harder for them to see the connections between events and use that for future planning. So, when something obviously went wrong in the past, then of course they will know, like, yeah, I shouldn't do that again. But if it's a bit less obvious, for example, they are doing things that might slowly build up to things going wrong, they may not really notice that, because their intuition is not very strong, which means that they might not pick up on the little things, like the little signs that things might go wrong or go right in the future. These things that are less obvious, that intuitives might actually pick up on, or maybe little things about people that tell them I shouldn't want to associate with this person or something, because maybe they don't have my best interests at heart. And it could help them if they reflect a bit more on their experiences, because if they do that, they will trigger their introverted intuition, and then they might get insights about connections, about these things that their intuition picks up on, maybe possible future scenarios that maybe wouldn't be a good idea or would be. This is why they are not very good at planning far ahead. Because when they're using their extroverted sensing a lot, they are going to be just very in the moment. And sometimes that can be really useful, but sometimes it can also be useful to actually make a plan so that you can work towards a goal, kind of reach goals instead of going with the moment. Sometimes you can actually achieve more when you have a goal in mind. There's this kind of idea of ESTPs that they can be taking a lot of risks. So this might be a bit of a danger where they need to pay attention to not taking too many risks, not being too impulsive. Of course, the thing is for ESTPs or ESFPs as well, they might be able to handle it well, right? They might be able to handle certain risks better than other types because they are more adaptable. But for anyone, you shouldn't go too far with your dominant function either. So they should pay attention that they don't take too many risks and they don't end up, for example, getting into an accident or like associating with the wrong people, that kind of stuff. So they might also just have difficulty knowing what they want because they don't spend a lot of time thinking about that necessarily. They have difficulty with both introverted intuition and also introverted feeling. So for them, it might be a bit hard to really think about how do they feel about things emotionally. What do they really, really care about? What do they value? What do they want? Thinking about that, because their natural tendency is that whenever they are focused on feelings, they are more focused on other people's feelings, a bit like social norms. They may express their feelings, but they may not really know why they feel a certain way. And they are kind of used to making their decisions with their personal decisions with introverted thinking, which means they kind of go about it from a very detached and objective perspective. So they kind of can benefit from getting more in touch with their emotional side of things. Their dominant function is extroverted sensing. This is the reason why they are really good at being in the moment, being spontaneous, adaptable, why they like physical activities, and they're good at handling objects and being aware of their surroundings. They like new things, doing new things, and their second function is introverted thinking. This gives them their very analytical side, where they love to analyze things. They just like understanding how things work. Their third function is extroverted feeling, which means that they do have a social side, but it's more of a side that might come out at random moments. Sometimes they'll be very stubborn with their logical opinion on things, but at the same time, they do like to be at least somewhat socially adaptable, and they know how to do that, and they also enjoy just being with people. Whenever they are in an extrovert feeling loop, so when they're being very extroverted, they might really like to just do physical activities together with people. So, for example, in a group of people, they might want to explore new things together, or even just being in a very crowded environment. And then their inferior function is introverted intuition. So, really reflecting on what's the meaning behind things? What's the meaning of life? What do I want with my life? What do I want in the future? Are there any long-term goals that I want to focus on? And how do events connect with each other? And just using their imagination, creating theories in your mind, or imagining future scenarios, something for which you kind of have to build a picture in your head rather than relying on remembering a picture. So that's a function that they might want to try to develop more if they want to be better at doing that. Then I'm going to mention their weakest functions are introverted intuition, extroverted intuition, and introverted feeling. So that was the ESTP type summarized. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!